Hey y'all, welcome back. I'm Shayna Cersei and I'm so excited to paint with you today. We're going to do another page in our watercolor journals today, and we are going to be focusing on some botanicals. I am going to be doing a combination of line and wash, so ink and wash it's sometimes called, but it's watercolor paint, as well as some ink. And I have a couple of pens here, but I'm primarily probably going to use this 0.5. It's an Artist Loft illustration pen. It is waterproof, and this is just the name brand of the local art store or the local kind of chain store. Micron is another really great option. These you can find online really easily. There's a link in the description. So just to go over supplies and materials other than my pen, I have two brushes today. I have two Princeton Velvet Touch brushes, size 10 and size 4. I also have my Core, Q-O-R, by Golden watercolor paints here in my palette. And I'm painting in my Bao sketchbook, also now known as Meeden, M-E-E-D-E-N. You can find it under both names. Okay, so we are going to do a nice subtle, I'm going to try to keep things soft and delicate. I tend to paint really bold and bright, a lot of things that I am attracted to, that I like to paint, but sometimes it's good to push yourself to do something that you normally don't do, or what you don't intrinsically kind of gravitate towards. So we're going to try to keep things soft and delicate, and we're going to do some basically they're going to be whimsical and fantastical in nature botanicals. They're not going to be one specific thing or a very particular flower. Maybe some of you will decide they look like something, and that's fine. Okay, so I am going to try to make a couple of subtle colors. Let's start with, I'm going to start with magenta. I'm going to do some mixing because I think color mixing is always important. I could always start with a raw sienna or another brown color to get like a beigey color, but I'm going to mix it. So I'm going to start with magenta, and I'm going to add a little nickel azo yellow. Any yellow would probably do. Any like neutral warm yellow. So I already have this orange here, which I'm going to add a lot of water to, and I've basically made raw sienna. It's a very light, kind of subtle color that you can see here. So I'm going to use this color. Let's see what else. Let me add a little more water to that. So basically just made orange with a lot of water. And what other colors? We're going to use sap green. I already have it here. I will use some of that. And then I think I'm going to also use some cadmium red, or maybe permanent scarlet. Let's see. So light green. All right, so this is the cadmium red. Let's see which one I like better. I'm going to do some like soft round berries. And this is the permanent scarlet, which is a little oranger, I think. It's a more of an orangey, tomato-y color. So they're very similar. So I'm not sure which one I'll use. Maybe I'll use a little of both. But you could certainly stick with one. All right, so let me switch. I'm going to use a larger brush for right now. I'm going to use some of this larger color. And basically I am going to, and we're going to put our ink on later. I am going to make just this roundish, ovalish blob with a center. I'm going to put something in the center. And we're going to do another one over here. I'm going to have really tall stems. And I'm going to do another one this way. I'm going to have the center kind of, the white spot is where my center is going to be. And I'm going to add darker color to that. Is going to be where the center is, where I'm leaving the white. I'm going to make more of this color, but a little darker. So that's very dark and very orange. And now if if this was too bright, too orange, and I wanted to mute it a little bit, make it a little more brown, just adding a little blue to it can help with that. So I'm going to add just a few little dips and drops, just darker color. And then something that people try to avoid often is putting big drops of water in things, but I'm going to purposefully add drops of water. And what I hope that it will do is actually push paint towards the edges to make these nice crisp edges. So the water is going to actually push the pigment out from the center and away by adding some drops of water. All right, and I'm going to let those dry. I am going to take a little burnt umber. So I have burnt umber in my palette. These are going to be my centers. I'm going to add that to the colors up here. But you can see I'm trying to do things in pretty light values, not doing its darkest, fullest concentration. So these are still wet, so I'm just going to add a little bit of this. We're going to come back with more later to make it more intense, but I'm just going to add a little of this to the centers, and then we'll come back and darken them. Okay, so now we're going to do some little round berries. Let me rinse off my brush. I'm actually going to clean this off. It's got a little brown in it. So this is the permanent Scarlet. I'm going to use it very nice and light. I'm going to try to make various sizes. And we're going to connect all of these later on to some branches, and we'll do that with our ink for these. So I'm just adding in some darker color on a few of them. And you could switch to a smaller brush and cluster a few together. All right, that looks good. So some when you do it this way, sometimes you have to use your imagination of really starting to visualize where the stems will go. Right now it's just a bunch of floating dots and orbs. So slowing down, you could draw some stuff in with pencils if you wanted, or you could draw things out with your ink first. I prefer, well, I guess it depends on the day and what I prefer. But today I'm going to do paint first, ink later. This one got a little funky down here for sure. It's not very round. All right, so I'm going to switch to my smaller size 4 brush. I'm going to pick up some sap green. My other flowers, these beigey color flowers, are drying nicely. So I'm going to go a little darker with this sap green, get a nice tip on my brush, and basically I am going to try to have the thinnest line possible. You could even go use a rigger or a liner brush if this is tough for you. This one is flopping over. And then this one, let's see, is facing this way. But I'm gonna have to go through a lot of things here. Boop, boop, boop. I'm not going to go around them. The stem is just going to naturally go behind things. Oops. And that's okay. I got a little funky at the bottom there. And then I'm going to add some delicate little leaves. Again, you can see I'm letting it skip in places, and I actually like that. All right, so we have those in place. I'm going to go back with some more darker raw umber and add even darker centers. They're still a little damp. They're going to bleed a little bit. But I left that white space so some of it doesn't bleed at all. So that is just dry paper in there. This one doesn't have a lot of white space. There we go. All right, so let's get these berries connected. Now this is a 0.5. Maybe I'll use actually a 0.3. It's a little bit smaller if I can find it. Here we go. So I have a 0.3, a little bit more delicate, and we're going to start to connect these guys. And I'm going to do this. You could do this with a brush, but I'm going to do it with pen. And I'm going to add a few other elements with pen. As these dry, I'm actually going to go around them a little bit. And some folks hate this. They just don't prefer ink this way. That is okay. You can leave it out. You can do this all in watercolor. Everybody can have their preferences. So let's see. The hardest part for me is not making all of the little the like berry shapes come off the same branch. You have to like make a branch and then make another branch, a branching branch off of that. And I might go back and add a little more. So like here I could make a branch and a branch. I might go back and add a little bit more paint to some of these as well. I will say this isn't very well composed, if you will. It doesn't feel like a, feels like a play piece, which is fine. Every piece you make does not have to be fully and truly composed, but you certainly can play with composition in your journal, try new things. Find out what works, what doesn't work. Or just practice elements and not worry about composition at all. You know what might be fun for this is actually adding, let's see, some open berries that don't have any paint in them at all. And just doing a combination. Smaller ones. And then I could even add maybe a couple of leaves. I'm gonna leave the flowers alone. I'm not gonna add any ink to them. I think they stand on their own quite nicely among this. They're kind of like this soft cloud-like structure among these harder, harsh lines. I'm gonna pick up a little more of this brown. There we go. So that was a fun little doodle page. I enjoyed making these little fluffy flowers and berries, line and wash. Let's add some, before we finish, let's add a little bit more. So I ended up using all permanent Scarlet, just FYI, for these. Add a little bit more to just a few. Pop in a little bit more contrast. Some of them are really light. I don't want to do every one. And then maybe just a few. Let's do a little green up here. All right, there we go. Well, thank you so much for following along with this one. I hope you found it somewhat useful, if not just playful and fun. Don't forget to check out the description for links to supplies and materials. Leave a comment if you have a question or have a comment on this tutorial. And like the video, share with a friend, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you for our next watercolor journal page very soon. Thanks, y'all. Happy painting. Oh, and thank you so much to my super thanks contributors. You guys are amazing. I can't believe you keep coming back and leaving those super thanks. So thank you so much. You're absolutely wonderful. All right, y'all. Take care and happy painting.